Thanks for your support as a channel member, Pulse Potato! The 2025 Formula One season could be one of the sport's greatest ever, with as many as 4 teams and 8 drivers in with a chance of winning races. So I've put this season's grid into F1 Manager to see how it will all shake out. McLaren are favourites heading into the season. Can Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri get the job done, or will Max Verstappen reign supreme once again? We'll be tracking every result across the season and checking in with the team's development as we go. And with 5 rookies on the grid, we'll be keeping an eye on how they are getting on as well. Here's the team performance chart ahead of the season opener in Australia. I've customised a database to do this and sort of used a guidance from testing to set all of this up. McLaren has the fastest car, just ahead of Ferrari and Mercedes. Red Bull is slightly behind in 4th, and Williams is best of the rest, and Sauber are still the slowest team. Who wins the title this season? Let's find out. The season kicks off with a home win for Oscar Piastri. The Aussie beats Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen to top spot in Melbourne. Pole sitter Charles Leclerc fell to 4th, while pre-season favourite Lando Norris failed to finish. Nico Hülkenberg rose 15 places to score 5th on his second debut with Sauber. George Russell was the only Mercedes in the points ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, Liam Lawson, Pierre Gasly and Fernando Alonso. Piastri takes an early championship lead, but Ferrari have the advantage in the constructors. Charles Leclerc won the first sprint of the year in China ahead of Norris and Russell. Australia winner Piastri was 5th as Sainz got his first Williams points in P7. On race day though, it was Lewis Hamilton who took the win for Ferrari, converting his pole into victory. He led a Ferrari 1-2 with Verstappen again in 3rd. Russell was 4th as Piastri started and finished in 5th. Norris again scored no points in the Grand Prix. Lawson was 6th as he continued to make a good start to life at Red Bull. Tsunoda and Hülkenberg were again in the points as Antonelli got his first score in F1 with 9th. Albon also got off the mark in 10th for Williams. Hamilton's win puts him top of the standings after 2 rounds, 9 points ahead of Piastri. Leclerc moves into 3rd ahead of Verstappen, with Norris languishing in 9th with just 7 points coming from the China sprint. Ferrari has a 40-point lead on their old rivals McLaren already, with the Woking team and Red Bull level on 46 points. Only Haas are yet to score. Hamilton became our first repeat winner in Japan, leading home another Ferrari 1-2. Norris got his season up and running with his first podium of the year in 3rd place, and his McLaren teammate Piastri was 4th ahead of the 2 Mercedes. Verstappen in his Red Bull could only manage 7th as Sainz and Albon both reached the points for Williams. And Oliver Behrman got his and has his first point of the year as well. Lewis now has a 17-point lead over teammate Leclerc, who's moved ahead of Piastri. Ferrari are strengthening their grip on top spot in the constructors as well. Norris's podium moves him up to 6th, and Antonelli's P6 brings him into the top 10. The 7-time world champion made it 3 wins in a row, winning from pole position in Bahrain. Leclerc and Piastri joined him on the podium as Norris was 4th. Russell was Mercedes' only scorer ahead of Verstappen's Red Bull. And it was double points again for Williams as Esteban Ocon opened his Haas account in 8th, and that result moves them into 8th in the constructors as well. Liam Lawson was 10th for Red Bull. Hamilton now leads by 24 points over Leclerc, and Ferrari continue to pull away from McLaren in the constructors. But the Papaya team and Lando Norris ended Lewis's winning run with victory in Saudi Arabia. Hamilton had been on pole, but he fell to 3rd as Leclerc was once again 2nd. Russell was 4th for Mercedes ahead of Piastri and Verstappen as Antonelli returned to the points in 7th, with the Williams duo continuing to cook with even more points. Fernando Alonso dragged the Aston Martin to 9th. That result trims Hamilton's championship lead to 21, with Norris jumping to 4th. Antonelli moves into the top 8 ahead of Lawson as Mercedes takes 3rd in the constructors from Red Bull. Alonso's point means Alpine is now bottom of the table. Charles Leclerc won his 2nd sprint of the year in Miami, beating teammate Hamilton to the victory. The McLarens were 3rd and 4th, with Carlos Sainz's Williams in 5th. Verstappen, Alonso and Ocon also bagged points. Leclerc went on to win the Grand Prix from pole position, completing a clean sweep in Florida. Norris finished 2nd with Piastri 3rd and Hamilton in 4th. Russell was 5th ahead of Alonso, Verstappen, Stroll, Lawson and Antonelli. Hamilton's lead is down to just 7 points after a stunning weekend from Leclerc. Piastri and Norris are hanging in there, but they desperately need some wins to really get into the fight. Sainz and Alonso are now in the top 10. Ferrari are 78 points ahead of McLaren after 6 races, and Williams are the top midfield team in 5th. Aston's double points in Miami shoots them up to 6th. Let's take a look at the development graph for the first time then. McLaren and Ferrari have pulled a large gap in performance on everybody else and are fairly closely matched. Aston are now 3rd fastest, but what is going on at Red Bull? No Adrian, no party by the look of it. They've actually gone backwards. Alpine are now the slowest team, with Sauber 6th fastest apparently. The rookies have had mixed fortunes so far. Antonelli has 4 points finishes, while Behrman has also scored, but Isaac Hadjar, Gabriel Bortoleto and Jack Doohan are all yet to open their accounts. Sadly for Doohan though, his score won't be changing because Alpine are booting him out and bringing in Franco Colapinto. Before we carry on with the season, come and join the AHGP Discord. We'll be in the F1 chat tomorrow morning sharing our thoughts on the Australian Grand Prix, or whichever race is next if you're watching this after the race in Melbourne. It's a growing community and we've recently passed 100 members. You can also share your F1 Manager saves. Look at this submission from Crazy Plays. There's a link in the description. Hope to see you in the server soon. Leclerc made it back-to-back wins at Imola from pole position. Piastri was 2nd for McLaren and Hamilton was 3rd. Norris came home 4th ahead of the 2 Mercedes as Albon and Sainz delivered yet more points for Williams. Alonso reached the top 8 and Verstappen had a disappointing race, finishing 10th. Leclerc's win means he's snatched the championship lead by 3 points over Hamilton. Elsewhere in the top 10, Sainz and Alonso move above Lawson, with Albon level on points with the Kiwi. Hamilton took his 4th career win on the streets of Monte Carlo as the top 4 finished where they started in Monaco. The victory gives Hamilton the championship lead back. Verstappen finished in 5th and Ocon picked up 6th for Haas. Gabriel Bortoleto scored his first ever F1 points with Sauber in 7th ahead of Alonso, Russell and Albon. Hamilton failed to finish though in Spain as Oscar Piastri took his 2nd win of the year. Russell got Mercedes' first podium of the season, while Leclerc came home 3rd despite starting from pole position. Norris was 4th ahead of Antonelli and Verstappen, Tsunoda picked up a solid P7 for Racing Bulls, and Behrman got his first Grand Prix points of the season in 9th. Alonso and Stroll were also both in the points for Aston Martin. Leclerc's podium sees him take back the championship lead as Piastri closes the gap with this win. Tsunoda jumps up 5 places with his 7th place above Carlos Sainz. In Canada it was Charles Leclerc taking victory as Hamilton was 2nd ahead of Norris. The other McLaren of Piastri failed to finish. Fernando Alonso picked up Aston Martin's best result of the season so far in 4th ahead of George Russell. Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz, Nico Hülkenberg, Oliver Behrman and Liam Lawson completed the top 10. Leclerc extends his championship lead to 18 points over Hamilton, with Piastri now 54 points off the pace. McLaren really need to get some wins on the board. Alonso's 4th place moves him to 7th ahead of Antonelli, and it also brings Aston Martin to 5th in the Constructors ahead of Williams. McLaren did get back to winning ways in Austria, with Norris leading a 1-2 ahead of Piastri, who had started from pole. Leclerc finished 3rd for Ferrari ahead of Russell and Hamilton. Antonelli was 6th, Verstappen 7th, Haas scored with both cars, and Bortoleto picked up another point for Sauber in 10th. Leclerc's lead is now 23 points as the McLaren drivers are closing in slightly. Antonelli jumps back above Alonso and Ocon moves to 11th. Leclerc was back on top at Silverstone, pipping Hamilton to the win and extending his championship lead further. Norris got his first British Grand Prix podium ahead of Piastri and George Russell. Williams and Haas saw both cars reach the points as Isaac Hadjar got his first ever F1 point in 10th. Victory in the Spa sprint went to Lando Norris ahead of the 2 Ferraris as Sainz finished in 4th. Verstappen, Piastri, Russell and Ocon were the other point scorers. On Grand Prix Sunday, McLaren were the winners, with Piastri taking the victory as Chef Sainz cooked all the way to P3. Hamilton closed the gap on Leclerc with 2nd place as the Monegasque only finished 16th. Sprint winner Norris was 4th ahead of Albon, Antonelli, Lawson, Tsunoda, Ocon and Hülkenberg in a crazy race. Hamilton's podium closes the gap between himself and Leclerc, with Piastri now within 50 points as well. Sainz's podium moves him up to 8th, jumping above fellow Spaniard Fernando Alonso. The final race before the summer break was in Hungary, and it was Oscar Piastri on top for McLaren once again. Leclerc edged out Hamilton for 2nd as the Monegasque began to grow his title advantage once more. Spa winner Norris was 5th behind Russell as Verstappen took 6th. Williams once again had both cars in the points ahead of Behrman's Haas and Stroll's Aston Martin. As the teams and drivers head off on their summer holidays, Leclerc holds a 16-point lead at the head of the championship over Hamilton. Piastri is a further 20 back, with Norris in need of a dominant second half of the season to get himself into the title fight. Sainz has cooked at Williams so far, while only Jack Doohan and Franco Colapinto have yet to score. Ferrari is almost 100 points ahead of McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, with Mercedes a very distant third. Red Bull could be under threat from Williams as the season goes on, with Aston and Haas looking like they're debating 6th place. Sauber and Racing Bulls are battling over P8, and Alpine will be bottom unless they pull off a miracle. Let's check in once again then with the development graph. Ferrari has a small performance advantage over McLaren, and Aston Martin and Mercedes are closely matched for third. Haas and Sauber have both made great strides forward, while Red Bull continues to struggle with its car development. Alpine has made up ground, but remains 9th fastest ahead of Racing Bulls. This year's rookie crop are still having mixed fortunes, although Hadjar is now off the mark. Behrman has scored in 5 of the last 6 races, Antonelli seems to have a good result and then a bad one, while Bortoleto has had some high points as well. Colapinto's just moved ahead of Doohan with 15th in Hungary. F1 returned from its summer break with a McLaren victory as Lando Norris took the win at Zandvoort. George Russell got his Mercedes up to second ahead of the second McLaren of Piastri in third. The championship lead closed to just 4 points, despite Hamilton only finishing in 4th, having started on pole position. That's because Leclerc failed to finish. Antonelli had another good day, with Verstappen in 6th ahead of Tsunoda and Lawson, as the Aston Martins rounded out the top 10. There was delight for the Tifosi at Monza as Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc finished 1-2 for the Scuderia. This Hamilton win moved him back into the lead of the championship, 3 points ahead of Leclerc. Piastri, who had taken pole position, finished in 3rd. Verstappen had his best result for a while in 4th ahead of Norris. Haas got double points with Ocon 6th and Behrman 10th, as Antonelli, Tsunoda and Alonso also scored. The championship lead swung back to Leclerc as he won in Baku ahead of Hamilton. He's really a specialist around the streets of Azerbaijan, isn't he? Verstappen was 3rd in a rare podium appearance for the world champion. Piastri failed to finish with Norris in 4th for McLaren, as Ferrari's constructors lead moves to 110 points. Alonso was 5th for Aston Martin as Hülkenberg had a great race for Sauber, finishing in 6th. Behrman was 7th ahead of Stroll, Tsunoda and Antonelli. Mercedes and George Russell took the win in Singapore as both Ferraris failed to finish. Piastri was 2nd and Verstappen made it back-to-back podiums since the early races of this season in P3. It means the Australian now has an outside shot at the championship as he's 31 points behind Charles Leclerc. Oliver Behrman took advantage of this crazy race to finish in 4th ahead of former Prema F2 teammate Antonelli. Ocon was 6th for Haas ahead of Sainz, Tsunoda, Norris and Lawson. Ocon's P6 moves him into the championship's top 10, and the American team's points haul sees them leap above Aston Martin. Time for our final update on the car performance before the end of the season then. McLaren has edged ahead of Ferrari. Could Piastri do a 2007 Kimi Raikkonen and swoop in late for the title as two teammates focus on each other? We'll have to wait and see. Mercedes have closed up too, it's now a top 3 in terms of performance. Sauber are marginally ahead of Haas and Aston Martin, and somehow Red Bull have gone even further back. I don't even know what they're doing there. Do they? Somebody tell me. Red Bull are a shambles with their car development this season. Oliver Behrman is the closest rookie to their teammate. He's just 10 points behind Esteban Ocon. Antonelli's beginning to find some consistency, scoring in all of the last 4 races. But Hadjar, Bortoleto and Colapinto haven't scored at all since the summer break. Lawson's kind of been the victim of Red Bull's struggles, scoring in just 8 races so far. Ferrari were back on form in Texas as Leclerc won the sprint, Hamilton falling 5 places to 7th. Piastri was 2nd ahead of Verstappen, Norris, Sainz and Russell. Antonelli picked up the final point, denying Hülkenberg in the Sauber. And the Monegasque driver took the Grand Prix win on Sunday, with fellow championship contenders Hamilton and Piastri 2nd and 3rd. Antonelli rose 11 places to 4th as the Haas drivers delivered another double score. Great result for Haas on home soil. Williams also had both drivers in the points, while Verstappen was 6th and Norris was 9th. And talking of Lando Norris, he bounced back with a victory in Mexico as Hamilton and Russell made it an all-British podium. Leclerc was only 6th, having started on pole, behind Antonelli and Piastri. The Aussie is now 40 points behind the man from Monaco it's probably a little bit too much for him to win the championship now, but a lot could still happen. Lawson, Ocon, Verstappen and Tsunoda completed the top 10, and with 4 rounds remaining, which include 2 sprints, just 7 points separate the Ferrari boys at the top of the championship. Leclerc headed Hamilton in the Brazil sprint, with the McLarens of Piastri and Norris just behind them. Verstappen, Antonelli, Sainz and Russell were the other drivers to score points. Norris made it back-to-back race wins on Sunday though, as Leclerc settled for 2nd place. Verstappen secured another 3rd place for Red Bull, with Hamilton only 4th. Piastri's title hopes are done now though, he's 50 points back after only finishing in P5. Stroll and Ocon made up many places to reach 6th and 7th, with Lawson, Tsunoda and Russell completing the top 10. Leclerc has doubled his title advantage over the weekend, but it's still only 14 points. Ferrari sealed its first Constructors' Championship since 2008 in Las Vegas as Lewis Hamilton took the victory. And while most of the Red Garage was celebrating, Charles Leclerc had a difficult day, falling from 2nd on the grid to 9th at the checkered flag, handing Hamilton the advantage in the championship battle. Piastri and Verstappen reached the podium as Lawson had his best result of the year in 4th. He was ahead of Russell, Norris, Ocon, Antonelli and Alonso. From 14 points behind, Hamilton is now 11 points ahead with 2 rounds remaining. Leclerc struck back though in the Qatar sprint as he took the win, but Hamilton minimised the damage in 2nd place. Norris, Piastri and Russell followed as Behrman, Alonso and Verstappen completed the point scorers. Hamilton took pole and the Grand Prix win however, as Charles Leclerc finished in 2nd. Piastri was 3rd, Norris 4th and Russell 5th. Sainz picked up P6 for Williams, with Alonso making up several places to reach 7th. Haas scored with both cars and Bortoleto scored another point for Sauber. Heading into the finale in Abu Dhabi, Hamilton holds a 15-point lead over Leclerc, and the British driver needs just 4th place to be certain of the title. Leclerc has more 2nd places, so a Charles win and Lewis P5 would see him take the title on countback. Hamilton had pole for the season finale and the Scarlet cars did finish 1st and 2nd. Hamilton was the race winner ahead of Leclerc, crowning him as an 8-time world champion. It was also his 8th win of the year, which helped him seal the title by 22 points. George Russell scooped a podium in the finale for Mercedes. Norris finished his season with a P4, while Piastri laboured to 8th. Verstappen, Alonso, Behrman, Albon and Hülkenberg all also scored in the final round. History is made then as Lewis Hamilton ends the wait for a Ferrari Drivers' World Champion, which stretched back to 2007 and Kimi Raikkonen. The red cars were just too strong for anyone else across the season, with Leclerc's 9th place in Vegas the big turning point in the championship battle. Lewis took full advantage and won the final 3 Grand Prix of the year. He's now undoubtedly the greatest to ever get behind the wheel of an F1 car. In his head-to-head with Charles, the Monegasque actually had the edge in qualifying, and while they shared the spoils in races over the season, Lewis picked up 2 more victories. Away from the title fight, Piastri got the better of Norris despite winning less races. What would that mean for Lando if it were to happen in real life? Russell was a strong lead for Mercedes, the only driver not in a McLaren or Ferrari to win a race all season. Verstappen failed to win for the first time since his debut year in 2015, and he was only 6th in the standings. Would he leave Red Bull in this scenario? Antonelli had a decent rookie campaign and Chef Sainz was superb for Williams, finishing the year in 8th. Ocon and Alonso completed the top 10. Lawson's 50 points are a decent return in a Red Bull car that didn't really improve much as the season went on. Oliver Behrman was impressive too, scoring 47 points. Only Franco Colapinto and Jack Doohan failed to score this season. It was double delight for Ferrari as they bagged the Constructors' Championship by 153 points over defending champions McLaren. Mercedes was a comfortable 3rd as Red Bull dropped to 4th. Williams led the midfield, but Haas were only 9 points behind by the end of the season. Aston dropped 2 places from 2024, with Sauber much improved and Alpine awful. 5 drivers won races and 7 stood on the podium, although Lawson and Antonelli failed to reach the top 3. Carlos Sainz's P3 in Spa was the only one to come from a midfield team. Leclerc dominated in qualifying, taking 12 pole positions, that's half of the races, and Hamilton took 9, Piastri took 3. An interesting season in the end with Ferrari on top. McLaren looks the form team ahead of the first race in Australia this weekend, but there's rumours Ferrari has been hiding its true pace. What do you think? Will McLaren run away with it this year, or are Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull going to give them a hard time? However it plays out, I just want to see a tight battle for the championship and great racing on track. And an Ollie Behrman podium. What's the one thing that you would love to see most in F1 in 2025? Tell me right now in the comments. If you liked this, I've got lots of other simulations and experiments for you to enjoy. We've recently done a 10-year simulation on F1 Manager, and I made the 2025 grid rated 100. I also stream some experiments on Sunday evenings, so come and join us live at 7:30 on Sunday. Next week's video will again feature the 2025 driver lineup, but we're going to randomise everything. A new feature has been brought into the F1 Manager game. When you start a Create a Team career, you can mix up the drivers, staff, facility levels and car performance. We could be in for an absolutely wild ride. Stay tuned for that. Leave a big thumbs up on the video and subscribe to see more of my experiments in the future. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. You're the best fans, and remember, be fast or be last.